They don't even call it a city. They just say it's the town. They just say they're going to town. Like that's what that. Because if you're from like Newfoundland somewhere on the island, because it is a massive friggin' island, and it'll just say, "Oh yeah, you were just going to." Yeah, it says this rock. It's called the Rock too, which is really kind of just the rock. It's a huge rock. Windy
Nazia's husband is Atif, and he's from there. He just made a documentary.
Okay.
About being brown in the whitest place in Canada.
Yeah. It's not out yet, but they're working on it. They've got like 60 hours of like stuff to edit down and stuff. And
yeah, it would be quite interesting, I think, especially if you're like if you've never been exposed to Atlantic Canada, there would be so many interesting like cultural miscommunications and understanding.
What do you mean cultural miscommunications, understanding?
I think just because it's hard to understand them sometimes. I find like they would speak so fast and there's like their own slang to it, and then you're like, wait, what was that again? Sorry.
What does it sound like? If you were to do it badly,
I can't even begin.
I set the stage up for you, man.
Yeah,
you can do it as badly as you want.
Yeah, well, it's not Newfoundland.
It's like, you know what? I want to Google a Newfie accent. Can you hit that?
Yeah, I got it.
I'm curious now.
They don't say Newfoundland. They'll say Newfoundland. Like they'll extend
crazy bastards.
Yeah,
just trying to screw with us city folk.
Yeah, and you really feel like if you're from Toronto area at least, you feel like you're in a tiny community, a village. Everybody knows each other. Yeah. Even downtown, there's only 2 streets that have parking, like paid parking.
Oh man,
which is amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah, what is awesome if you're living in the city and you're like, wow, it's amazing, but at the same time, it's kind of insane because you're like, what the?
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, and it's just really really windy.
You know what? I recently went on YouTube and I found.
This is gonna take a while. Keep talking.
Yeah, just keep it to yourself.
Don't be bringing it into the microphone. We don't have.
You're gonna talk for 10 minutes about what it takes to be the reason. This is how you want to feel when you say this, Aboot. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you know what I did do was I went to did this thing called screeching. Mm-hmm. If you know what, have you heard of it at all? Do you know what it is? Okay, essentially it's this thing that has become a tourist thing in Newfoundland. Is where you go to these couple of pubs that offer this, and you go. There's like a little sheet that they read from, and it's like all these funny little ways of saying things. Mm-hmm. You eat a piece of fish that's salted. It's first smoked and dried and then salted.
And they like this.
Yeah,
they want this fish.
You'd break the. I don't know if I'm supposed to share it because it's kind of a Newfoundland folklore thing where they don't. Maybe unless you do the screeching, you can't. You can't like share it. It's like some weird.
Was it like an omen thing or a foreshadow? What's this? What's the purpose of this salty fish?
I think it's just. I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know what the purpose is, but I
jumped in at omen.
Yeah.
Apparently have the salty fish.
You eat the salty fish.
You
break the tail of it and you put it in your pocket, and then they say that's the strangest piece of tail you'll find in Newfoundland. That's one of the things you do while you're.
This conversation moving so quick is like this accent is not even. Hold on, here we go.
Play it.
When we greet each other, a lot of times we'll say, "How's you getting on, my son?" or "How's you getting on, boy?" And that means is, "How are you doing? How how's your family? How's your mom?"
You want to hear it again?
Or how you greet each other. A lot of times we'll say, "How's you getting on, my son?" or "How's you getting on, boy?" And that means is.
So what makes people go that way? Like we all know where everything started, but what happens? Did somebody get really annoyed?
I think they're kind of isolated. And the answer to that question is "dizzit," which means this is it. But they just say "dizzit," like a D-I-Z-Z-I-T, like a super urban version of slang, but it's like Newfie slang.
It's like country. It's like I grew up in Texas, so it's just like some people, it's not even, I'm like, oh shit, I'm such an immigrant even though I speak this language really good, where you get there to like Paris, Texas, and they're like, I don't even know how to begin. Even though I do a great Southern accent. But it's like, if you want to say...
As badly as you want to.
Yeah, sure. So like, if somebody was going to say, I'm looking for Deer Park Arena, they will, in a normal sound, like, hey, I'm looking for Deer Park Arena. Which way is it? Can you give me a little bit of directions? That's standard Southern redneck. Yeah. But then they will go like, hey, I'm looking for Deer Park Arena. Which way is it? And they go zzz and D's, and then the other people understand them perfectly.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm so sorry, I'm not from this country.
I think you have to develop the ear. There's no way around it. You just have to. Yeah. And it takes some time and exposure. And the slang part is probably the most confusing bit.
I feel worse for like foreign exchange students who get into certain universities and they're like, shit, I'm here now. And that must what they think Canada is.
Yeah.
You're like, Canada's a small town.
or they love it, or it's like a themed adventure park.
Man, you're so optimistic.
I am
over there.
optimistic, but I do like that craziness of it all. Like you can like take a quick flight, but it's not quick. It's like 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
But once you get there, it's like a completely different experience. Like culturally, it's so different, and that could be kind of like an exciting little adventure.
Did you feel out of place being brown? Like, was there like a
Waqas.
palpable feeling of the other? And
No.
you being treated as so?
Not really, but what I think happened was when I was walking around town, I just felt like a student, like a grad student,
Right.
because the only minorities that are around are students. So I was like, oh, I'm just a student, but I'm not really a student. I'm just visiting. It's a whole other perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and it's different because all the names of the streets and the way people are talking. It's all like in the food that everything's deep fried and fish based. It's just very different from what you'd find in.
Sounds
a
great
big
for a
city.
Muslim, doesn't it? Everything's fried and fish based. Like,
Yeah.
everything I like.
Yeah, there is a lot of that actually. Yeah,
All right,
And
while we're on that topic, what's good to eat there?
a lot of fried food. A lot of
It's just really.
Is it fish and chips?
there's a lot of-
7 different types of fish.
There's a lot of fish and chips, which is kind of cool. But I think they're diversifying now. There's a couple Italian restaurants. There's a bunch of stuff that's happening. That's
It's like Italians are just now getting there.
I think they've been there, but maybe a
Jeez.
couple of years. I wouldn't say like the diversity.
That's
of food.
amazing.
Yeah, like Toronto problems are like things like, oh, well, where do we want to eat and what kind of food do you want to eat?
Yeah.
That's like a very privileged position to be in, I think. Most of the world isn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very limited food options.
I can imagine. I
Yeah.
can imagine. Is that because I know you go to a lot of places? So you work for the government, policy writing, working for different departments and whatnot. Get to travel a bit.
Yeah.
In a nutshell,
Yeah, but
should I
different
grow that nutshell any bit, or I'm cool with just starting up there?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go with
All
that.
right,
Yeah.
perfect. So you travel a fair bit. What are like? This was for work. You were in. Sorry, the St. John's. It's so unexciting. I keep forgetting. He's told me 4 times.
Yeah, it's in Atlantic Canada. We'll just say that.
Ah.
It's in Atlantic Canada, not the Maritimes. The Maritimes are the other 3 provinces.
What's like the longest you're like in a specific city or country or whatever?
I think the longest would probably be like Mongolia, where I just was. It was about 11 months.
11 months, man. At that point, you're living there. You're a Mongolian.
Yeah. I think the Mongolians would beg to differ, but yeah.
You felt hella Mongolian.
I did. I bought the national dress. I like ate the food. It's a lot of fun. That part, yeah. And I think 11 months to a year is a good amount of time to like be immersed in it enough, especially if you're kind of gung ho about it, like I am.
Right.
Where I just
Well,
wanna,
you really like this.
That almost sounded racist, especially if you're gung ho about him. Like, hey, easy on the Mongolian here.
No, I mean, it says that you're really excited
no,
about
we
the
hear.
culture.
I understand English. Yes, after all of this, I get it. Making a bad joke over here.
What? So you actually like being away from home for that long? Those long periods of time. That's something that's okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think I've been quite fortunate because I don't have like the family circumstances that may be demanding me to be in one place physically, like geographically limited. I don't have that. Like my parents are healthy and financially secure, so I don't feel like I need to be here. Maybe later in life that wouldn't be something I would do, but I think for now, because I have the opportunity, I definitely take it and go.
For now, you get to hang out in Mongolia
For 11 months.
for 11 months. All right, so explain
we did a full podcast about like him going to
Genghis Khan.
Dominican, or
Oh,
if
wait.
we'll go to like that too, or if we'll like go to New York, we're like New York.
Yeah.
It's there for 11 months.
Yeah.
Like it's not even that you're trying to get the flavor. Like you're
became
getting
you
getting
started-
all the weather patterns. You're getting
Yeah.
their news.
Everything. You got to live and breathe it, I think, if you want to really understand the psyche of a culture. And it's a difference between visiting it and just kind of seeing what the touristy things are to do, like what I did in St. John's, and like actually living there and doing your laundry and dealing with like the hassle of getting a driver's license or like those types of things are when you have to deal with authorities and that kind of stuff is a very different experience, and you see the frustrations and the fun parts of it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I like that part.
I don't even know what question to ask that
Yeah.
will make me sound intelligent about travel. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, what's the top Mongolian stories you got? Lay it on us.
Okay, so I think one of the greatest things that I was very fortunate to be able to do was that when I landed, I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday, and on that and the weekend, the first weekend, the people that I was with were like, "Oh, you want to go ride a horse?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" I'm jet lagged, my brain's kind of fuzzy. And
I'll ride a horse.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't drive a car right now.
No, yeah, but a
One
horse,
horsepower.
sure.
One horsepower.
One horsepower.
horsepower.
It's doable.
I can take that.
Yeah, it's totally manageable. And also, so what I did was I jumped on the horse. I went on it, and I kind of like fell in love with the whole idea of being on a horse and like the Asian steppe. And and it really helps you kind of get your mind to be in that phase where you can imagine the armies of like Genghis Khan with his like generals kind of marching down towards China, that kind of thing. Like it really gets you.
Mashallah, that was fast. He rode one horse.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I was there.
All of a sudden, he's
I
like,
like it, though.
I need some people to conquer.
Yeah, you really feel it though.
Everybody here could have my DNA, too. It's
Where's my
like,
eagle?
Where's the eagle?
Yeah, where's the eagle? I need the eagle.
Which is the quintessential Mongolian thing from what I understand.
Yeah, it is very much there. And I think there's a historian, Jack, I can't remember his last, Witherford or something like that. And he's written a lot about Mongolia. And that's one of the first things he talks about usually if you listen to him talk, is that when people go to Mongolia, you can feel the history because it's an Asian steppe. It's very, very harsh in a way. The environment is very harsh. Nothing really changes. And man cannot conquer, or like humankind cannot conquer Earth, so
People
to speak.
kind.
Yeah, people kind, exactly. Current affairs, very good.
No, I pay attention.
Custom to them.
So is everything very old or?
No, it's not that it's old. It's just that the ways of being are very much in harmony with nature, and you can't conquer nature because the winters are extreme, the summers are extreme, the winds extreme. It's just an extreme kind of country. So when you're on a horse, let's say in the Asian steppe or in Mongolia, you can feel what it would feel like to be on a horse in like 12th century. Like that's something that I can't say a lot about many countries, which is very unique about Mongolia. And I sucked at the horse thing. It took me like 3 months to get the whole like gist of how to ride a horse.
Wow,
and-
you really persisted. I thought this was like the weekend after you land, and then you go back to cars.
No,
you really wanted to get at least proficient with it.
If I can't learn how
Yeah.
to drive a standard car in like 2 hours, I'm not trying again. I was like, I'm never gonna need these. They don't even make these anymore. And this guy's 3 months trying to ride a horse.
Yeah, I think what was cool about it is that because like if you try to ride a horse in Canada, like you can't really go anywhere. You'll be in a barn most likely, going in circles with like two people around you who are super concerned about liability, and if you fall down, you might hurt yourself. There might be a lawsuit, like that kind of thing. So it's very different. There's no lawsuits in Mongolia. You get on the horse, you break your back. Too bad, you know. It's gonna take you an hour on the horse going back to the car which you came from, which you got out of, and then go all the way back to the city. So that's gonna be a very painful ride if you have a broken rib or something. So it's a very different kind of way.
Food like
The food piece, nothing. That part is not fantastic. So if you're in the city, I think you can get Korean food, Japanese food, that kind of thing. But if you're like in the countryside or like rural
You're eating
Mongolia,
horse.
yeah, you do. You eat horse, you eat cows, sheep, goats. Marmot.
It just depends
Marmot.
on how it's being cooked, but the way how you're saying it, is it as extreme? It's wind, hot, and cold? Like,
You just
that's
have to
how
kill
you
your
eat
own
the
horse
food?
and just eat it with your teeth. Just
Yeah, no, I think they're not big on flavor. That's not something because I think the whole spice thing comes from Southern Asia. So like Southeast Asia and South Asia, it's not.
Accountants.
Yeah, it's it's just they're just not doing the whole spice thing. So like their food is very bland. Maybe they'll have some salt and some onions, and that will be like, oh, that's some spice there. And most Mongolians can't do spicy food at all. So if you're South Asian,
I didn't expect that at all.
Do they look at food differently than the way how we look at food, or Western cultures look at food? Western culture, like this is an experience. Depends on how deep you want to go in food.
Yeah, I was like,
But,
wait, how rich are you? Because poor people don't do that.
Yeah, no,
Only
but I
rich
would say
people
that-
do that. Oh,
alright.
this is an experience.
No, but even I would say even middle class to whatever. You go to a nice
a
restaurant
photo.
from time to time, and you enjoy a good meal. And
Yeah.
there's a ranged palate. But like, is it over there where they just look at food like this is sustenance? We just eat this so that we continue living.
they are a bit picky about what they eat at what time. So like they'll eat horse in the winter because it has a higher
Protein content. It does.
Yeah, and they will say, and it's chewy and it warms up your body slightly differently. I don't know I know there's a word for it in Urdu, takhsir or something like that it's called. Because I was talking to my parents about this and they told me there's this thing, it's like hotter, but that's the one they tried to like translate it in
My
English.
mom says, "Ye gosh na bahut chewy hai."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's chewy.
Yeah, well, that is exactly what horse meat is too. It's super chewy.
Okay.
Yeah, but it heats up your body a lot in the wintertime, so they'll eat it in the
Are
winter.
you just sweating because you're chewing a lot?
Or that's one of the reasons, but it's good. I think overall that's the component that over the years they've kind of mastered that.
Right.
Yeah, and then you'll eat in the summertime. It's mostly sheep and goat and
How'd you get a hold of that hawk, man?
the photo, that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Very touristy thing? Or was it just like
it's not
it's
tourist
at the airport?
It's not really no. So there's touristy things that you could do with a photo like that. So essentially, if I could describe it, it's just like me with the like a coat that's very intense and a hat that's very intense. It's a fur hat and a fur coat with the massive eagle on my on my arm, and the eagle's about 10 kilos. So it's really heavy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can't just kind of hang out with it up there. So the people who are doing the eagle hunting are pretty intense. Like they're very strong people, and Mongolians in general are pretty strong people. But that photo, it was the guy. He's on the BBC. If you ever get a chance, you can check out this. He's a whole series on him. Oh my God, what is his name? I'm forgetting his name. Escapes my mind.
That's okay.
But yeah, there's a whole series about him that you can. Silo, his name's Silo. Yeah, you could do it. There's a whole BBC series on him and his family, and he's won many awards. He's been recognized in Mongolia as one of the top eagle hunters because he wins a lot of competitions.
Eagle hunting competitions, Yasin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Jeez. I would love to have like an eagle that would do my bidding.
Yeah.
Like in Mulan, that dude. That guy had an eagle.
Yeah, that guy had a badass eagle.
Badass eagle.
Yeah, that was
Messed
a good
shit up.
movie.
Yeah.
Messed stuff
Yeah.
up.
They look at that movie all different in Mongolia. That's like a tragedy. Like, it's a sad movie. We don't show that to kids. Only adults see that and cry.
I think the bond is very different, right? The bond between the eagle and the hunter is super different, and it's something that's quite unique, I think. I mean, they do the whole thing in the Gulf countries. They have falconing.
That's falcon, yeah.
Yeah, and they use falcons for that.
It seems just like a bougie version of like
Yeah.
eagle hunting.
Yeah,
But, right?
yeah.
Because it's all princes now.
Yeah, it's
just like oil money.
No one's
It's going
trying to
on,
do it for food.
No,
Yeah.
like these guys are still hunting with it. All right, I have a question. Just because, so you put a sleeve,
Yeah.
and then after the eagle's on your,
Yeah,
like,
the eagle gets on
Can
top
you
of the sleeve.
you feel how much pressure this eagle is holding onto your arm? Like, do you feel, is it a substantial?
The eagle's pretty chill being
Oh,
with
okay.
people. They're,
Okay.
Yeah, so the eagle does, I would say, cry in a sense when you're in a car with the eagle.
Yeah.
So because eagle's trying to balance, and you're kind of, and there's no roads. You're just kind of going into the countryside. So like the whole thing is shaking, and you're in these like old Russian vans. So when you have an eagle on your arm, and the eagle's trying to balance, and the eagle can't see anything because it's covered. The eyes are covered. Right. So it's freaking out a little bit. So like, what am I supposed to do here? You know. But outside of that, once you're outside and the eagle can feel the wind, and eagle can feel very grounded.
Right.
It's super chill. Like it has no issues just hanging out with you.
Right.
Yeah, even without the covers on their eyes. Yeah.
Right.
But the thing is terrifying because it's huge.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm so glad that covers on the size.
yeah.
So it's not because you're holding it too close. It's too close.
Yeah,
it's
it's
too close.
way too
Also,
close.
eagles always look intense. There is no dial down.
Yeah. It's always angry.
Yeah.
Would you say? Like nothing even.
I would say strategic. They have like those deep eyes. They're always like looking.
Did you get to see one? Did you get to see one hunt?
No, because I was there in I can't remember what the month was, but it wasn't like full on hunting season because they do it in the winter because that's when they see the foxes
right?
move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
foxes, yeah.
And they apparently have incredible vision. Yeah. And they can just see a fox move like kilometers away, and then we'll go fly and get it.
If I ever am around an eagle, I'm gonna bring a mouse and just
Yeah.
like throw it.
Although I don't think the eagle would do anything because mouse is too small. Like
Still go for you, bro.
Yeah, I know. It's still me. Damn it.
You'll be like, yo, he threw a tic tac. I'm still going for the big thing.
Yo, I gotta put on some weight. I think that is a problem. I think an eagle would totally size me up. And we're like, I can fly away with this guy. I could try.
have you seen those eagle videos where the eagle grabs the
Goat?
the goat or
Goat.
sheep and just chucks
Yeah.
it off the side?
Yes, we've
Oh,
watched.
yeah.
We've
Yeah.
watched so much of it.
Right. I've
Yeah.
seen like 8-9 minutes of eagles, golden eagles, just pulling rams and goats off.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Sometimes I'm at work. I'm just working.
Yeah.
And I think about a cool video,
Yep.
specifically this one.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I gotta watch this right now.
Yeah.
Take a walk, and just watch.
Every time worth it. Every time. Because sometimes the eagle will grab the goat and like pull it and just drop it.
Yeah.
Other times they'll just grab a goat and just fly. I've seen it
Yeah.
just glide away. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
The dude's just alive and he's just like hung up with these horns.
I believe I can fly.
Yeah, he's like, this is the best and worst feeling ever.
Yeah, so the eagles are terrifying, like because they're just so big and they are very substantial. You can't not know there's an eagle hanging around. It's got one of those things. It's got presence.
It's got a presence in the room.
I was actually listening about eagle attacks that still happen where they try to fly away with kids. Because
Yeah.
you can fly with a good 2 to 3 year old even.
Yeah, easily.
Easily.
With that-
Just
easily.
waiting for that video. And I've searched for it. Just nobody's been able to catch it. There's reports it's happened. I just need
I think
that
the parents are
video.
usually freaking out at that point. They're
Some,
like, get
man, some
away.
parents are attention. We've watched Fail Army right before. Some parents are like, their kid is crying, stuck on the swing, and they'll be like, "Oh, how's he gonna get down?"
Yeah, you know what the eagles
Oh,
do
I
too
found
is sorry.
No, not at all. I was just
What'd
saying,
you
like,
find?
so there's a guy in England. Derby, wherever that is. You might know.
Yeah,
And he went jogging.
Yeah.
He went jogging, and then a bird of prey attacked him. And this is what it did to his head.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about this too. Where so they drop things on rocks to break it.
Oh,
Right? So they
really?
can take little things and so they'll take bones and try to drop it on rock to break the bone so they
Yeah.
can get the marrow.
I
so
saw that
if you're
video.
bald,
Yeah.
they're gonna want to chuck stuff on your head because they think it's a rock.
Noted. I'm gonna wear a hat.
Yo, that's
Also,
some gashes.
right? So, and the thing is that these are two very nice straight lines.
Look at that.
Also,
They're thick.
it's round.
Yeah.
So that means he had to.
He stayed with it like one of those Gillette blades does for a second. He had the. That's ridiculous.
That is as close as that man is gonna get.
Yeah.
That was that's intense. Anyway, so he got a.
I'd never jog again. I was like, jogging. They're like, but it's not the jogging. It's even like jogging. I'm done with
treadmills,
jogging.
treadmills for
I'm
life.
using this. I'm putting spin doctors on this.
Yeah.
No more treadmill for me in the basement.
Doing evils. Jeez.
Oh boy.
11 months in Mongolia. I must say, like, I never had that. You know what? I want to say, like, I didn't have that freedom to be able to do those things, but I never really even sought it out. But when somebody says, like, yeah, you know, like, once I graduate from school, I want to really, you know, see the world. I don't even know why my mind didn't even kind of go that way.
I think it's one of those things like it's great. It sounds awesome, but there's also the other side of it where you're like have to. So for a while I was like, oh, I don't have my temporary residence card. So once you get there, your visa's only there for 1 month. Then you got to get your temporary residence card because you're working there and you're living there. So you have to go deal with the immigration department and all that. So there's like these types of administrative hurdles that you still have to deal with. So then that's kind of a bit of a headache. You know, like one time our key broke into the lock so you can't get into the apartment anymore because the key just got broken into. So who do you call? How do you figure that out in another country when you don't know the language? Like it's very complicated. So there are definitely those moments of frustration. So it sounds awesome, but there's also like those moments of growth that if you really take it that way, you really can grow and learn from it.
Right.
It's definitely out of comfort zones though. So most people don't seek out to being in -30 weather in Mongolia for the winter kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think most people. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak of most people, but like even for me, there's the comfort zone, and then after there's I will pick this to step outside. Like it is a very deliberate thought of like I need to do something new. What am I going to do? Let me pick this one thing. I'm going to go and do that.
I'm going to step just outside my comfort
Exactly.
zone.
And then literally my hand's still inside it, but like I'm just reaching in. But for you, I mean, like I think it just takes a different type of mind because like you literally are like very far out. And it
was
seems like this is something that you're
Like a
comfortable with.
step-by-step thing where like first he's like, all right, we're going to Milton. And then you start from there and end up in Mongolia. Like what
That's
were
so
the first
interesting.
few...
And I was like, when I was listening to you talk about that, I was like, wow, I don't think that's how it works because life throws it at you. You don't get to choose. I mean, you get it. Sometimes maybe you can choose whether or not you want to take that step, but a lot of times life will give it to you. And it'll say, well, here it is. And you have to deal with it. Sometimes people have health issues that they'll just come thrown at them.
Yeah.
And then they have to use that as an opportunity to grow and learn, right? So I think for me, every time I get an opportunity, I'm like, great, I can learn and grow. And I can attest to it. I've been, I think, over like 86 or 87 countries now.
There's 87 countries.
Yeah, I was just counting. I was like, where am I now? But for sure, I can tell you every single one is a completely different experience and you learn every single time.
Right.
It's just a different way of doing things. And every time you have another perspective, you grow from it. So I look at it as a catalyst. So if I can go from 1 + 1 to 2, this is like, you know, experience on acid, and you can go 1 + 1 + 1. All of a sudden you're at 10. And yeah.
But I still feel because you mentioned health issues, and I can speak to that too a little bit. And the thing is that like to me at least, the way how I experience health issues is more of, yeah, you have to grow, you have to deal with it, you have to learn how to work around with the cards that you're dealt with. But at the same time, health issues motivate you to stay in the comfort zone. Right? Like I haven't traveled in like 7 years for the most part. Is this very reason around health, right? I didn't do stuff. There's activities and things that I didn't do just as a result of that. And so like, you know, while you were right, you know, some people live life and then after it gets thrown to them and then they're like, okay, I need to grow and things like that. But I still think that most people can choose to be comfortable and not have to like seek it out. But like you're just mentioning like it's an adrenaline rush for you to be able to get like one to the other. And that's that's cool. That seems like that's the thing that's motivating you anyway. So like,
Yeah, I think the growth piece motivates me a lot.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're right. For some people, it can be very limiting, but then you see growth in other ways.
Exactly.
So you'll push your comfort zone by doing something that you're not feeling comfortable. You don't feel comfortable with by maybe, I don't know, doing public speaking, or I don't know, becoming a comedian or something. You could do something that for other people would be terrifying. So you can step out of your comfort zone in many, many ways.
Right.
Like I'm here doing the podcast. You know, for some people, this might be like terrifying. They're like, oh my God, I'm being recorded. I don't know what to do with this. So you can step in it in many ways. So I think the ultimate focus should be to grow and learn. And if you can do that, then you can find ways. Where there is a where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
there's a will, there's a
Look
way.
at that. Look at this Disney infomercial guy over here.
Yeah.
This is a nice.
So positive and
I know
happy.
over here it's like, yeah, you
very,
gotta
very accessible, bro. Very
turn that frown upside down as I sit here with my sweater and my button shirt and my khakis.
Yeah.
You look nice today.
Very comfortable.
I like it.
So let's say, for example, someone decides that they want to travel. All right, okay, I'm looking to travel a little bit more, right? Now I got to split my time now because I've just recently, through a couple of my friends, figured out that I found out about resorts and all-inclusive resorts.
Nice.
I found out about them, and I really like them.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely I went to one. I'm definitely going to another.
Yeah.
But now I'm gonna have to split my time because like whenever people say go travel, you feel like this one aspect that's missing. When I went to Punta Cana, it's just very much like turn that switch off and then not do anything for 5 days.
Yeah.
Whereas you're dealing with a whole slew of issues.
Yeah, it's a different type of traveling.
Yeah,
A
for sure.
resort is the epitome of being in your comfort zone and sticking a finger out.
Yeah.
In fact, you're getting more into your comfort zone from what I can tell.
I was
what a
gonna
resort
say,
is.
But-
it doesn't count necessarily.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not exactly. That's what I'm saying. But like, I also want to do a little bit more of like an experience-based travel as well, right? You've been to a bunch of places. What would be a good place to go? And then how do you seek out the non-touristy type aspects of a place?
I think I used to do this thing ages ago, like maybe 15 years ago. You'd go to
You
a
just get a
city.
little closer to the mic. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I used to do this thing ages ago, like 15 years ago. I'd go to these cities, so like Barcelona or Madrid had, I don't know why I'm thinking Spanish cities, but whatever. That's when I went ages ago to Spain. But you can have these hop on, hop off type of buses things. And it's great if you're only there for 2 or 3 days. And because you're hitting the sites, you're taking your photos with the Eiffel Towers and the Big Bens of the world. And you're like, oh, awesome, I did this thing. And that's great. But if you actually want to go and experience some of that, you need to give yourself some space and some time. So you say, okay, I'm going to go for 10 days, let's say. I'll do the touristy stuff for 2 days, but I'll stay 8 days without any real agenda. And once you go there, you'll discover it. I find it's kind of like walking on a trail. You'll just start walking, you'll find paths, and then you just need an exit date and need to know what your comfort zone is and when you need to leave. And outside of that, you can stay there forever because experiences, once you have a planned itinerary, it's hard to deviate from it because your mind is psychologically anchored in those experiences. It wants those experiences only that you've already thought of. Right. So you're not looking for other stuff to do, which is off the beaten path.
Man, that's so true. That's because my wife is exactly what you described. Like if you can say, hey, there's a great deal for Yemen. She's never been to Yemen. She's like, I have an Excel sheet for Yemen.
Yeah.
And she has an Excel sheet. And people will just message like, do you have an Excel sheet for this place? And she has an Excel sheet for every place. So
basically, everything's planned with Farah.
yeah, very much so. We're waking up at 8.
Yeah.
We're running to the Eiffel Tower at 7:30.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I think that can work for some people for sure, but the part about it is that you have to let go of that control piece. Like you can't control everything. So especially in another country like France, like there could be a holiday. They have so many holidays in Europe. You're there like, oh, 8:00 we're gonna go to this thing, and then the subway's closed. And you're like, why is the metro closed? Well, because of sun whatever day, and then now you can't
Could
do
name
it.
one is like San whatever day.
Well, I don't want to go to the stereotypical ones. I was like, because they're all these 8 days.
It's all sense.
Yeah. So I think once you let go of that control aspect, you can do a lot more, I think, because you're more open to it. And then somehow your mind is more relaxed and it's more open to new input as well.
Right.
Whereas if you already have an agenda, then you're focused on that agenda. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
And it's like if you go into the house and you're looking for the keys, that's all you're trying to find. Like, where's the keys? Where are the keys? Where are the keys? You're not looking at the million other things around. So if you go without an agenda, then you're noticing the paintings, you're noticing the carpet, you're noticing the floor, like you're noticing all sorts of things. And that's where I think true travel and like opening your eyes to a different way of doing things comes through. So you just give yourself that extra space. and
What do you
don't
do-
jam pack it.
What do you do when things get wrong, like go wrong?
You laugh, man. You just laugh
Because that's
it's
the
funny.
fears. That's like when something goes wrong in a country where you don't speak the language, don't know really the rules.
Yeah.
And that's what really holds, I feel like, me back for the most part. Not that I'm going anywhere.
Yeah.
But like, I like to think that's what hold me back.
I think you gotta laugh. So it's like when we're watching those fail video things. So there's some people who fall and laugh
Right.
because they think it's funny, and some people laugh and get upset. So those are the two types of people right there. So if something doesn't go your way, you can laugh and say, "Well, I can't really do anything about it. It's out of my control, anyways." And then you try to make the best of it, or you can be upset about it, and then I think that usually makes you more upset, and then it ruins everything else. So it's so you gotta
That's
just,
true. That's so true.
Yeah, you just gotta let it go and be like, yeah, well, you can't do much anyways. We control very little in our lives. Most of it's out of our control. We just like to pretend that we are in control.
Damn. What if you get kidnapped in Syria?
Yeah.
How did that happen, by the way? Because that's one of the first time I met him, and one of our mutual friends was there, and you guys started talking about it. And I was like, "You got kidnapped in Syria?"
Yeah.
Which is
I think the
Seems very dangerous.
seems like one of the more dangerous places to get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Getting kidnapped anywhere would be an issue,
Right.
yeah.
but when you're in those situations,
I think that I was nervous because if I don't know if how much, I guess we're talking to podcast.
I was nervous because I was laughing, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Keeping a positive outlook."
They're like, why do you have a Russian accent?
I don't know, comrade. I know. Sorry, I don't know.
That was great. Your accents got crossed over and made that scenario so
Now
much
you're
funnier.
definitely a Russian spy.
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, this is all sorts of current affairs stuff happening on this podcast.
How did that happen, though?
Well, I was working for the Canadian embassy there in Damascus, and that they started doing protests in January, I think 2011 or so. January, February. By March, it was like full on issues, and I think the issue was that I was not a local staff. So the way embassies work is they have local staff and then they have Canada-based staff, and it's the same in
Right.
most countries. They have the embassies running. They usually have local staff and then the civilian staff from their country. So I think the issue was that I was working around as a Canadian staff member, because I am Canadian, but I don't look Canadian to them. So I think that was where it got kind of fuzzy. So they're like, who is this guy who just showed up and he's going in and out of and the embassy cars always had the little Canada flag. And they're like, oh, why is he always like a Canadian, but he doesn't look Canadian? And his name's Waqas, which is like an Arabic name.
Right.
And yeah, so,
What's this guy trying to do over here, being Canadian, being called Waqas and looking brown?
yeah, and,
It's a lot of red flags for them.
yeah.
A lot of it can let that pass.
And I was
It's a Canadian flag. It's red.
Yeah, and the odd thing about it also is like I was not born in Canada. I was born in Qatar in the Middle East. So then there's a few different flags, so to speak. Anyways, so one day they just arrested me after I was at a party for a diplomat's birthday, who I actually reconnected with in Ottawa last time I was there, which was hilarious. It's one of his favorite.
What did you say?
look
Hey,
better.
you made it out.
No, the Canadians were awesome. Actually, they were on it right away. But I was nervous because it was on a Thursday. I'll explain the context. So the context is like the weekend is on Friday and Saturday.
Right.
So the first day of work.
So you're like,
is-
they're not freeing me on the weekend. I mean, work on doing somebody's Friday.
I have plans for the weekend. I got stuff to do. No, I was worried because nobody at the embassy would know that something happened because it was at nighttime on Thursday. So it's like being detained on Friday night. So no one's gonna know that you're missing really until like Tuesday, because Monday you could be sick or something.
Wait, no one works Friday?
No, Friday's
Saturday.
yeah.
All Arab countries.
Oh,
Yeah, the
right,
weekend's
yeah,
Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So Sunday is like a Monday.
Right.
So I was like, oh, no one's gonna know that I'm like something's happened,
Right.
Because no one has a clue that I'm missing. So that was the part I was like, oh god, like this is not good, you know.
But not the part that you were kidnapped.
Well, I can't control it. Like I think I have a very clear understanding of what I can control and
Yeah.
what I can't control. So if I can't control it, I don't stress about it. I'm like, it's out of my control. So I can't stop them from doing anything. They're the ones with the guns. They're the ones that I'm stuck
They
in a
got the
bunker.
guns, man. They have guns. You're
Yeah.
trying to make small talk.
I was like, oh, what is that? What is that? A Russian
That's
made?
a nice beard. Oh, what you got under that hat?
Yeah, I really commend you on being able to stay calm. Like, I know that I can get there.
Yeah.
But Syed knows me. I got an introductory period of panic.
Yeah.
Right, I will eventually get to where you are, but like there is a point where
It's
I'm gonna have to ride.
It's true.
Yeah, it's gonna be a thing. So you just all right. Well, there he goes.
Yeah, I
You're
think-
handcuffed. You're sitting in the back of a van, truck.
Well, no,
That's the
they put a what do you call like a cover
hood?
on my a hood.
Man, they actually like they went all out. You guys got the hood and everything.
Yeah, because I don't think they want you to know where they're taking you.
Right.
So then and it's a military base, like a compound. And the first bunker that they took me was actually just around the corner from my apartment. I was like, oh my God, this has been here the whole time. I didn't even know. I've walked by it every day.
Hey guys, you want to just go home?
Yeah. But that was the only time I was like, ugh. And then I had
I was like, guys with guns took me and put a hood.
a bit of a pickle.
Bit of a pickle. Bit of a jam here. First I break my key in the door. Now this.
These are comparable things right here. Jeez. All right. So, where were they holding you?
The military base, but there's a joke in about the Syrian intelligence people. They're called.
They're not very intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're
I go all
called.
through the spectrum of accents.
You go from Russia, you just keep going.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Yeah. So then the people, like, they're just paid very little, and they just kind of do the neighborhood watch type of people. They like figure out who's up to what, that kind of thing. They're called the mukhabarat. But what's interesting about those people are they don't necessarily have the critical thinking skills per se. They just kind of follow the manual. Why am I talking about this? What was it?
Where are you being held?
Oh yeah.
And you're like, apparently they're dumb.
Yeah, so they took me to this spot, and then I kept telling them, I was like, just come with me to my apartment. I can give you my passport, blah blah blah. You can figure it all out.
Right.
They're like, no. We're gonna take you to this place, and then they called in their, I don't know, chief or whatever, and then the regional chief or district chief, and then they took me to this military base. And that's when I was like, damn it, now I'm stuck in this. Because you go through all these bars. Like, they open the whole gates and you go. And now I can't even, like, where am I going to go? You can't run for it because that's for sure. Definitely going to. Yeah, that's death right there.
They don't like that. They go, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Nothing I can do. It's out of my control. Blah, blah.
Now we're going to have to kill him. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Jeez.
So they put you in a cell?
No, they were very friendly once I got into the compound. Like once I was in the military thing, what do you call, unhandcuffed?
Unhandcuffed you?
Is that
They
a word?
freed you?
They freed me.
For my bonds.
Yeah, and then they accosted me for not speaking Arabic. They were like, well, how can you grow up in the Middle East for 15 years and not speak Arabic? And I was like trying to explain to them, well, I went to these English-speaking schools and the GCSEs are a thing. It's a British system where they're just like...
You start reading Quran. You start reading Quran and be like, listen, I know this.
Yeah, but that's essentially it. They just get upset with you. And then the guy was upset and he's like, oh, this is bullshit because you're clearly lying. And I was like, nah. And then they call the embassy.
I'm like, nah, I'm not lying.
Listen, bruv, I'm not lying.
Oh, man. And then what?
Yeah. Then
Stephen Harper came in? Actually, whoever the prime, Paul Martin?
2011.
It was
Stephen Harper. Yeah. No, but the embassy has some people from their military folks who deal with this kind of stuff. They're prepared for it. They know how to go about this. So they have all
It
sorts.
happens often.
So like
probably.
Canadian soldiers.
Not Canadian soldiers.
No,
It's not
It's
like
like somebody
a movie.
calls, like, hey, this guy's okay. Send him back.
It's nothing like the movies where like SWAT. None of that stuff is happening. They're like, oh, let's make a call. They just call them. They're like, oh, is this true? They fact check everything. I don't know. And then they come to the base and then they get you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they go to your house, rate it, check everything upside down, make sure you. Yeah.
See? Comfort zone.
Yeah.
Your comfort zone expands after that.
Yeah.
You're like, my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Holy
What's
crap,
crazy
dude.
about that story is like, so I was.
Yeah, what is crazy about
Yeah,
that?
what's the crazy part?
The crazy part was because I was living with a guy who's Kurdish. And Kurds, if you know the situation, they're like pretty marginalized. They can't speak their language, no music, none of that stuff, and especially in Syria. And he was like involved with the Kurdish movement, let's just say.
Oh my God, dude.
The uprising.
But he's in my apartment. So it was me and an American guy and this Kurdish guy.
Yeah.
And the look on that Kurdish guy's face when the Mukhabarat agents with guns and everything showed up at the apartment.
He thought it must have been for him.
He thought it was for him. And he like the horror. Like I've never seen that on like a grown man's face.
Because you know what happens to him if they take him.
Yeah.
He ain't coming back.
Yeah.
No one's being nice to that guy.
No.
Kurds
Yeah.
don't have a land or anything.
No, nothing. And in Syria, it was even more intense because at least in Iraq, they have Kurdistan and they have, TV stations and music festivals. They can celebrate Nowruz and all that stuff. But you can't do none of that in Syria and in Turkey either. So it's a very lockdown kind of situation for them. Although Kurds are were all over Damascus. They had a lot of like restaurants and that kind of thing. But they just mostly work. I don't know about the property rights thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't able to own anything. Yeah.
Right. Where are you trying to get to? Like, I know you've been to like, what, 83 countries or so, you said?
Yeah, it's over
What's
85
left?
now. Oh, so much, man. There's so much stuff to see. There's just a ton.
They got to make new countries for you. Like,
Yeah, so
Wait,
there's
what's
similarities.
What's the total count?
I think it's about 87 now. Yeah. But I have huge black like holes in my mind. Like Latin America, anything south of the border from Mexico all the way down. I have no
acid.
idea. I gotta go check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it.
Have you gone
Yeah.
to Mauritius?
No, I want to. These are the places I want to check out. Like these are some of the cool parts that I'm like super.
You been to Karachi?
Yeah, I haven't
Oh,
to Karachi.
Nice. nice.
Karachi is the place to be.
My parents are in Karachi right now, and my
cool.
mom messaged me 2 hours ago. She was out with my cousin and my cousin, his wife, and their baby, and somebody robbed them at gunpoint for a cell
Again?
phone.
Just
one
now?
cell phone. That happened last time my mom went to, which is 2 years ago. Just literally for a cell phone, one cell phone. Somebody pulls a gun out on like a guy, his wife, his baby, and my mom.
Is she walking around with like a new phone, like an iPhone?
No,
10 or
not even my
something?
mom's phone. Like my mom leaves her phone and everything at home.
Yeah.
We have instructions.
Yeah.
But yeah, like one of them had a phone and it's just ridiculous.
I heard Karachi is pretty crazy now. Like
Yeah,
it's
man.
pretty unlawful. Like people just do whatever the hell, and like the value of life is next to nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of thing that like, I guess there's always a million reasons not to do something, whatever it is, travel, just put yourself out there creatively, whether it's painting, acting, or whatever. But you gotta take some chances if you're gonna experience life, the world, and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
like,
and I think
it's-
for like thousands of people that are going, like the cases are still not like that often.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, things happen. Like when I was in Ghana, people got robbed all the time. Like it happens. It's not that it won't happen. It's just you got to be a little bit more careful, be more mindful. And if you go, that's another part. If you go for a longer period of time, that's the huge advantage. You pick up the language a little bit. You understand the psyche and the culture of the people. So you're able to better defend in a way as well. So you're not just there for 2 weeks and it's very obvious that you're visiting. So they're like, well, this. So what happens in the longer term stays, at least, is people are like, he kind of knows a little bit too much about the country, like the political, how the politics of it works and why things are the way they are, what this means, what that means. So they're like, okay, well, he's been here for a while. Or most people assume I'm married to the someone from that country. So they're like, oh, he must have like a Mongolian wife, or he must have like a Ghanaian like something, or business interest or something.
Why else would he stay here so long?
Yeah, I think
Who's
so. I
staying in
think
Mongolia this long?
because it's crazy because developing countries have so much culture. It's so intoxicating, but they don't view as that. They just think of it as a huge liability. Like, oh, I would love to just go to Canada or US and that would be amazing and everything will be like MTV Cribs, and they have this idea, but it's not true. Like it doesn't. I know that because I'm here, but at the same time, I don't think they know, and because they don't know, they don't value it as much. Their
Are
own
they
culture.
happier there, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Like
Yeah.
in Mongolia, even with the weather and everything, because you've been
Yeah.
here, you've been all over the place, and you actually get the feel, the flavor of what a mood of a place is.
Yeah, I think so. I think people are more happier. But the Mongolians, they're interesting. They don't smile that much. That's like part of that Russian mindset. Like if you smile or if you're too friendly or happy, they assume you're drunk. Like because they don't. So they have like these poker faces that they could be the happiest. Like the driver that we were on like a tour for 2 weeks in Western Mongolia, and he had a baby the second last day, and he was like, "I just got a text. I am a father," and I was like, "Holy shit, that's huge!" And he was just like, "Cool." Anyways, so we'll be there at 4. And I was like, it's his first kid. Like, it's not even like, but they're just so nonchalant about stuff. They're just like, yeah.
Inside, I am singing and dancing.
Yeah. But then, of course, when they're drinking, then they get way more
Start.
excited.
Yeah, they probably.
Yeah.
Is there any reverence? I meant to ask this earlier. Is there any reverence towards Genghis Khan at all?
Genghis Khan. Yeah, so that's like the English one. So it's Genghis Khan. Everything is Chinggis. It's like ChinGGis. In like
Okay.
English, it would be like that. And yeah, so that he's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's on the money. He's on like monuments. And
Wow.
he's
Still.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very major character.
Yeah, you would
there.
have to. And it's so funny because like you can't put up statues of everybody who's led genocides. You know,
Yeah, they don't see it like that.
they don't see it like that. Of course,
At
they
all.
don't see it that way.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't see it that
I
way
don't
either.
I
Yeah.
feel that's the weird thing though, because
Wait. Okay. No. Continue.
if
Yeah.
anybody did this in modern times, like I'm just gonna take over.
Yeah.
It's like this brutal, but it's like, hey, that was the rules of the time. You take over, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think, well, you have to understand the context of 1200s and 1100s. There
Mm-hmm.
was people, like, Europe was going through the Dark Ages. There's people dying of, like, very regular generic flus. So that's a very different world.
Flus.
Yeah, like you'd have a flu epidemic, people would be just dying left, right, and center.
Right.
Sanitation is horrible. There's tribal warfare between the different clans. So Genghis Khan as a leader was able to bring together a lot. Like he was able to somehow get these people to put their differences aside and agree on one thing, which is a lot, especially considering the amount of space they had to do this over. Yeah. You're talking thousands of kilometers. Like, how do you do that,
I think most people are okay with that part of his legacy.
Yeah.
It is the part where he already made the unification of Mongolia and decided to point his attention elsewhere. And then that's when it starts to get a little...
I think so. This is where it's really interesting. All the different biases come into play here, right? So if you talk to someone from Iraq, they'll have a very different perspective of what the Mongolians did. And if you talk to someone from China, they have a very different perspective of what the Mongolians are. But I don't think Genghis Khan or any of the Khans were ever option one, attack. That's never the option. He always provided for inclusion into the system. And if people chose to not do it, then I think at that time you're like, well, too bad.
So
it
was his option too.
Yeah, it was option two. But it's kind of what modern like realpolitik in a way is like that.
Yeah.
It's the same, like that's what the US does. That's what Russia does in its backyard. That's what China does in its backyard. That's just how
all
it
the
works.
time. Yeah. It's like, hey, can we have this Ukrainian city or not?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't? We're coming in.
Yeah, to save the Russians.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. It's just I think we do it under the guise of economics, under the guise of we're protecting human rights, et cetera, et cetera. We don't actually do it just straight up. Whereas and Mongolians are extremely direct. There is like no BS with them. They're just straight to the point. If they don't like it, they'll tell you right away. They're like, I don't like that. So I think that culture comes, like you can see it even today. So I think they were like, yep, that's too bad. 1 million of yours, 2 million of ours, we're taking it. And they just come in and do what they got to do. Yeah. Which is a very different perspective from the West. I think they're like, oh my God, this guy. But they have a little statue of Marco Polo.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, right in the
good show.
No,
That's why I know.
it is. It is to commemorate the show. Yes,
It's a great pool game.
yeah.
What's the next place you're going to?
I don't know. I have no idea.
You just came back to yesterday or so?
Yeah, yesterday.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to out west Alberta to start working, but but that's work related. I think that's a whole other.
Enjoy the winter and the harvesting.
Yeah, it should be.
These are the two things that you can enjoy when you're in.
Along with the River Valley in Edmonton.
Right.
Everybody likes to talk about the River Valley in Edmonton. Yeah.
All right, man. We gotta have you come back for more stories because we just really dug into Mongolia. I feel like we went to like page 1, the preface of your book. So actually, are you planning to write a book?
Yeah,
I think that would be fascinating.
It's a lot of work.
You should call it like whatever amount of countries you've been to. Like if it's 97, you should call it 97 and counting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good title.
Which
plug
will
it in.
then open up the opportunity for a sequel book.
Right?
That's true.
Right.
In the
Wow, you guys
120
are
and counting.
marketers.
Exactly.
Ooh,
Yeah.
We definitely aren't. Also, like and subscribe, people.
Plug it.
And thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. All right, people. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll be back in a week. We love you all. Good night.